Between now and Election Day here on 207, we are talking with the candidates for major office in Maine, the congressional and the Senate races. With us today is the Democratic representative from Maine's 1st Congressional District, Chellie Pingree, who is running for re-election to her 9th term. Thank you for coming in. It's good to have you here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You know the thinking that if voters feel that things are going well, the country's in the right direction, and Congress is doing its job, then send your representative back to Congress. But if you're not happy with the way things are going and you want to change, then you should not send your representative back to Congress. A lot of people clearly unhappy with the way things are going. Why should voters in the 1st District send you back?
Well, that is their choice, and I certainly hope the voters will give me a chance to return to Congress. I've really been privileged to serve the state of Maine in the 1st District for the years that I have. There are a lot of issues we still have to work on, and I am anxious to get back to work in another session in a future year if I'm lucky enough to be there, whether it's the challenges of the cost of housing or economics in general, so many of the issues that we're dealing with here in Maine based on our natural resources, fishing, farming, woods-related issues. There's just a whole host of things bringing down the cost of childcare. I've got a very long list of things I want to do.
The first issue you mentioned was housing, which was the one that I wanted to get to right off the bat because it is such a severe problem, particularly in the 1st District. What role can the federal government play in addressing the housing crisis and the high cost of homes?
Well, Maine has done a good job in terms of understanding that it's an issue and trying to, formulate a policy at the state legislative level that deals with making sure like we're doing everything we can as a state. But really, we depend on federal funds. Those funds come from the Housing and Urban Development Program, HUD. That's where a lot of low-cost housing comes from, the tax credits that are available, and the USDA. All of those, in my opinion, are currently underfunded. They've been big priorities of mine over the years. Right now, just to give you a sense of it, I'm on the Appropriations Committee. The Republican budget proposal for HUD took our request of $1.2 billion and cut it down to $500,000. One of the reasons I think the Democrats should be back in control, we can make housing a priority, more of that money can come. That's money that goes to build new homes, low-income homes. It also goes to Section 8 housing, the rent subsidies that many people need just to pay the increasingly unaffordable cost of rent.
There's a perception out there that the federal government helps people on the lower rungs of the ladder economically when it comes to housing, but it doesn't do much for the middle class. What can be done for the middle class, for the folks all over southern and central Maine who just want to maybe buy a starter home or maybe move up from a starter home to their second home? They don't qualify for the low-income programs.
That's a very good point.
What can be done for those people?
So USDA, we used to call them farmers' home loans, and they were very common in Maine. People would get them either low or no down payment, get you help started on a loan and a low interest rate loans. We need to increase the amount of funding there. That goes to the middle class, absolutely. Also, we have a huge inventory shortage, as they say. We need about 80,000 more homes by 2030. And you know how hard it's been to get housing built. Some of it due to a worker shortage, some of it's due to supply chain issues. So the more we can build out even of low-income housing, you will have less pressure on the housing stock that we do have. One of the big problems is the cost of housing has gone up so much. That's really due to a low inventory, and frankly, for people who've decided to move to our state. Now, we need the workers in our state. We're the oldest population in the nation, and every business owner I know is telling me, help me get more workers. But what I've heard in a lot of places is new workers come and they don't have a place to live. So building that stock, I'm in favor of the plan that the Vice President is talking about, $25,000 in assistance to help people with the down payment. Sometimes that's very hard to do because it's hard to accumulate the savings.
But doesn't that just drive up the cost of homes?
Well, if you have more inventory, if we can build more homes, that's absolutely what we have to do. Housing tax credits will help. I mean, we have to have a little bit of a Marshall Plan around housing. We have been experiencing the perfect storm. We didn't build enough after the recession. As I said, we're the oldest state in the nation, so we weren't building as many homes because we weren't seeing our population grow. We had the pandemic, and now we've had a net in-migration. So Maine, while some beneficial things have happened, that more people want to be in our state and want to help us build the economy, we have to have an all-out press to build those new houses.
You just said we need something like a Marshall Plan, which is a large, expensive program. You've always been a proponent of big activist government. The problem is we have a big activist government that spends far more than it takes in. We have a monumental deficit and debt in this country. Does that concern you at all?
Oh, absolutely. And one of the reasons I've been proud of the work we've done under President Biden, you know, even though everyone doesn't like the name, we passed the Inflation Reduction Act, and part of that was to make sure we are working on the plan to put money both to deal with inflation but also to reduce the deficit. I serve on the Appropriations Committee. We've been dealing with spending caps. We've been dealing with plans to put money towards the deficit. But we've had a little bit of an uncontrollable government under President Trump that gave big tax
both
cuts.
Republicans and Democrats for trying to balance the budget in the last 20 years is dismal.
It is dismal, and it's very hard to get Congress focused on a routine plan. It's kind of like paying off your credit card, how much you're going to pay every month, how are you going to design your systems to do that. I will say under the last year we've been dealing with budget caps in the Appropriations Committee, and some of that goes to set aside money to deal with the deficit. And next year, however the Congress is configured, we have to just dedicate ourselves to doing more of that. We've talked about having special spending commissions, and I think it would be beneficial for Congress to have an overall plan. And the other thing we have to talk about is the huge tax cuts, many of which were put in place by President Trump, that give big corporations and some of the wealthiest people in our country the ability to pay no taxes, have to be removed so we can get some of that money back in to pay for that deficit.
All right, that's the last word. We have to leave it there. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate you being here. Again, Democratic incumbent Chellie Pingree in the 1st Congressional District. She's running for re-election. More information about her and her campaign in the 207 section of our app or website. Stick around. Back in a moment.